Part 1. On the outside, it looked perfect. My name is Anna. I'm 34. And if you looked at my life just a year ago, you'd think I had it all. A beautiful 2-story home, a husband with a solid job, a sweet 5-year-old boy, and pictures on social media that made everything seem perfect. We had family dinners, weekend barbecues, vacations at the lake. I smiled in every photo. I played the role. But no one saw what happened when the doors closed. No one heard the way his voice changed when no one else was around. It didn't happen all at once. That's what people don't understand. It started small, a joke that made me feel stupid in front of friends. Then came the comments about how I dressed, how I talked, how I should be more grateful. I started walking on eggshells, always trying to keep the peace. He never hit me. He never left a bruise. But the damage was there, inside. I began to feel like I wasn't real anymore. Just this version of me that he allowed to exist. He'd make me feel guilty for going to see my own sister. He controlled the money. Every dollar I spent had to be approved. And then, it got colder. No affection. No kindness. Only rules. Only silence, or yelling. I'd try to talk to him, try to tell him I was unhappy, that I felt trapped. And he'd twist it. Somehow it was always my fault. I was too emotional. Too dramatic. Too selfish. And the scariest part? I started to believe him. I stopped talking to friends. I stopped reaching out to my mom. I told everyone I was just busy or tired. But the truth was, I was scared. Scared of what would happen if I spoke up. Scared of what he might do if I tried to leave. I remember lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling. Wondering how I ended up here. Wondering if this was what my life would always be. A beautiful prison, with no way out. Part 2. He started controlling everything. At first, I thought maybe I was overreacting. That maybe this was just how relationships were when you've been together a while. That maybe I was the one who needed to change. But day by day, it became impossible to ignore. He started watching what I wore, even inside the house. If I dressed too comfortably, he'd say I let myself go. If I dressed nicely, he'd accuse me of trying to impress someone else. He didn't like when I laughed at other people's jokes. He didn't like when I made decisions without asking him first. He used to text me during the day, just to say I love you. Now, it was just, where are you? Who are you with? Why didn't you answer? I wasn't allowed to have passwords he didn't know. He checked my phone, my browser history, even my search suggestions. One time, I looked up how to stop feeling anxious in marriage. He saw it and exploded. I started hiding things. Even tiny things. Like buying my son a new book without telling him, just so he wouldn't accuse me of wasting money. And that's when I realized I was living 2 lives. One where I was quiet, obedient, controlled. And another, inside my own head, where I screamed silently for help. He wanted to know where I was at all times. He installed cameras in the front of the house for safety, but I knew what it was really for. I remember one day I was late coming home from the grocery store, only by 10 minutes. There was traffic. I had no signal. When I got back, he looked me straight in the eyes and said, "If you ever disappear like that again, you'll regret it." That night, I didn't sleep. I just held my son close and stared at the door. My boy started asking questions. Why does Daddy yell so much? Why don't you smile anymore, Mommy? One evening, I was crying quietly in the kitchen, thinking he was asleep. My son came in, holding his stuffed animal. He looked up at me and said, "Did I do something bad? Is that why you cry?" My heart broke. I realized it wasn't just about me anymore. My silence, my endurance, wasn't protecting him. It was hurting him. I thought I was being strong. But I was showing him that this was normal. That this is what love looked like. I couldn't let that be his truth. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I didn't have a plan yet. I didn't know how. But I knew I had to go. Not someday. Not when it's convenient. But soon. I had to find a way out. Even if it meant starting over from zero. Even if it meant risking everything. Part 3. I started planning in secret. After that night, the one where my son found me crying, I couldn't pretend anymore. Something had snapped. I didn't know where I'd go. I didn't have a secret bank account or a family ready to rescue me. I felt completely alone. But I also felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Determination. I started small. I cleared my browser history and searched only in incognito mode. I looked up shelters, legal aid, support groups, anything that could help me understand my rights. I learned that what I was living through had a name. Coercive control. Emotional abuse. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't weak. I was just trapped. But I could get out. I began preparing quietly. I hid copies of important documents in my son's old backpack, birth certificates, insurance, my ID. I tucked away a little cash every week, small amounts, just a few dollars from grocery money, enough not to raise suspicion. I kept a notebook hidden behind the dryer, where I wrote everything down. The things he said to me, how he made our son feel, the threats. If something ever happened? I wanted proof. Every time I heard his car pull into the driveway, my stomach twisted. I'd snap back into wife mode, making dinner, smiling, nodding. He had no idea. And yet, the fear never left. What if he found out? What if he took our son away? I had nightmares, vivid ones, of being dragged back, of losing my child, of people not believing me. But in the middle of all that fear, there was a flicker of hope. One day, I reached out to an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years, Maria. She used to be my closest confidant, before I pushed everyone away. I didn't even know if she'd answer. But she did. And when I told her, her voice cracked. Anna. I'm here. Whatever you need. That was the first time I cried out of relief. We talked in code over text. She gave me the address of a small apartment she had access to through her job. It wasn't much, one room, barely furnished. But it had a door that locked from the inside. And no one else knew about it. I kept telling myself, you can do this. Not for you, for your son. I started packing little things, toothbrushes, extra clothes, a few toys, and hiding them in the trunk of my car. I waited for the right moment. Not out of fear. Out of strategy. I needed to be sure we could leave and not be found. And then, one night, the moment came. He came home angry, more than usual. Something had gone wrong at work. He slammed cabinets, yelled about dinner, called me names in front of our son. My little boy just stood there, frozen. I looked at him. I looked at him, the man I once loved. And I knew. Tomorrow. We leave tomorrow. Part 4, the morning we disappeared. I barely slept that night. I laid there with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling in the dark. Listening to the sound of his breathing next to me. My heart was pounding the entire time. At one point, I thought, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I should wait just a little longer. Maybe today isn't the day. But then I remembered the way my son looked the night before, wide-eyed, frightened. That was all I needed. I waited until he left for work. He slammed the door on his way out like always, keys jangling, engine roaring out of the driveway. I had a small window. I moved fast. Grabbed the backpack with our documents. Took the bags from the trunk that I'd packed little by little over weeks. Woke my son gently. He didn't ask questions. I think he knew. I held his tiny hand as we stepped out the door for the last time. No note. No goodbye. Just silence. I drove with shaking hands. Every car behind me felt like him. Every red light felt like a trap. I turned off my phone. Removed the SIM card. Took a different route than usual. We arrived at the small apartment Maria told me about, just a little space above an old repair shop. It smelled like dust and wood and freedom. I locked the door behind us. My son walked in, looked around, and asked, "Is this our new home?" I kneeled down, hugged him tightly, and said, "For now, baby. Just for now." That evening, Maria came by with groceries, bedding, and something I didn't even know I needed, a hug. A real one. From someone who cared. That night was the first night in years that I slept, really slept. No fear of footsteps in the hall. No icy silence at dinner. No pretending. Just peace. It didn't feel like freedom yet. It felt scary. Lonely. But also, right. My son curled up beside me on a mattress on the floor and whispered, "I like it here, Mommy. It's quiet." And I cried. Not because I was sad. But because I had finally done it. I had chosen us. Chosen safety. Chosen something better, even if I had no idea what came next. Part 5, starting over, and facing him again. Those first few days felt like I was walking a tightrope with no net. I kept checking the window. Jumping at every knock on the door. I knew he'd be looking for us. I didn't know when or how, but I knew. Maria helped me get in touch with a local women's shelter. Not to stay there, but to get legal help. That's when everything got real. I sat across from a woman with kind eyes and a folder full of paperwork. She explained my rights. What I'd need to do to file for custody. For protection. It was overwhelming. I was scared I wouldn't be believed. Scared he'd twist the story. That people would think I was just emotional or dramatic. But the advocate looked me right in the eyes and said, "You're not the first woman to sit here. You won't be the last. And yes, we believe you." I cried in her office. Again. I did that a lot those days. My son, he adapted quicker than I did. He started smiling more. He laughed at cartoons again. It was like he was blooming in front of me. And every time he did, I felt this mix of joy and guilt. Joy that he was okay. Guilt that I hadn't done this sooner. I filed for an emergency custody order. The day I signed that paper, my hands were shaking. I thought, this is war now. And sure enough, it started. He found out. I got a call from an unknown number. I picked up, stupidly, and heard his voice. Calm. Cold. "You've made a huge mistake. You think they'll protect you? They'll see who you really are." My blood turned to ice. I hung up. Blocked the number. The fear came flooding back. I checked the locks 3 times that night. But I didn't run. I stayed. I wasn't that woman anymore, the one who flinched and stayed quiet. I was a mother protecting her child. He tried everything. Called mutual friends. Spread rumors online. Told people I was unstable, manipulative, trying to ruin his life. But I had records. Journal entries. Voice messages. Photos. And I had something stronger than proof, I had my truth. My advocate helped me file a restraining order. At the hearing, I had to face him. He wore a suit. Smiled for the judge. Played the part. But when I stood up and told my story, my voice didn't shake. Not even once. I looked him in the eyes, and for the first time, he looked small. I walked out of that courtroom with the order in my hand. It wasn't the end. But it was a beginning. A line in the sand. A step into something better. Part 6. Becoming someone I never thought I could be. It's been 9 months now. I still double-check the locks. Still get a chill when I see a car that looks like his. But I breathe easier. I sleep deeper. I smile more. We live in a small apartment now. Just me and my son. 2 bedrooms. A tiny balcony where we grow little plants. It's not fancy. But it's ours. Some days, I still feel like I'm healing from something invisible. I'll walk into the kitchen and expect a comment. I'll hear a loud noise and brace for yelling. Trauma is quiet like that, it doesn't shout. It whispers. But I'm learning to talk back. I joined a support group. I speak now, out loud, about what happened. And when I do, other women nod. They understand. One day, a new woman came to the group. She looked how I used to feel, small, scared, like she'd forgotten how to take up space. And when I told my story, she cried. She said, "I didn't know you could leave and still stand." That's when I realized. I've become someone I never thought I could be. Not just someone who survived. Someone who grew. My son? He's thriving. He draws pictures of us smiling. We cook pancakes on weekends. He tells me he feels safe. He even asked if he could invite friends over, something he was always too nervous to do before. I said yes. Of course I said yes. We laugh now. We dance in the kitchen to silly songs. I'm not perfect. Some days are hard. Some nights, I still feel that old weight pressing on my chest. But I remind myself. You left. You chose peace. You built something new from ashes. I used to think staying was the strong choice. That enduring made me loyal. But now I know. Strength is choosing to walk away from what hurts you. Strength is being the mother my son deserves. People ask if I hate him. I don't. I pity him. And I forgive myself for loving him as long as I did. I wasn't weak. I was hopeful. And hope isn't a flaw, it's the reason I survived. One day, I want to tell my son everything. When he's older. So he understands not just what we went through, but who I became. I want him to know that love should never make you feel small. That being scared isn't shameful. And that courage sometimes looks like a tired woman, with a suitcase, walking into a new life with nothing but a child and a heartbeat full of fear. And still going. Still choosing better. Still healing. Because we deserve it. We always did.